Hello and welcome to the Internet Privacy Prezi for your COM 1019 course. First, we're going to start with privacy. If you have nothing to hide, why should you care about privacy? What follows is a 2-minute and 40-second TED Talk.
Hi, this is my mobile phone. A mobile phone can change your life and gives you individual freedom. With a mobile phone, you can shoot a crime against humanity in Syria. With a mobile phone, you can tweet a message and start a protest in Egypt. And with a mobile phone, you can record a song, load it up to SoundCloud, and become famous. All this is possible with your mobile phone. I'm a child of 1984, and I live in the city of Berlin. Let's go back to that time, to this city. Here you can see how hundreds of thousands of people stood up and protested for change. This is autumn 1989. And imagine that all those people standing up and protesting for change had a mobile phone in their pocket. Who in the room has a mobile phone with you? Hold it up. Hold your phones up. Hold your phones up. Hold it up. An Android, a BlackBerry. Wow, that's a lot. Almost everybody today has a mobile phone. But today I will talk about me and my mobile phone and how it changed my life. And I will talk about this. These are 35,830 lines of information, raw data. And why are these information there? Because in the summer of 2006, the EU Commission tabled a directive. This directive calls Data Retention Directive. This directive says that each phone company in Europe, each internet service company all over Europe, has to store a wide range of information about their users. Who calls whom? Who sends whom an email? Who sends whom a text message? And if you use your mobile phone, where you are. All these information are stored for at least 6 months up to 2 years by your phone company or your internet service provider. And all over Europe, people stood up and said, we don't want this. They said, we don't want this data retention. We want self-determination in the digital age, and we don't want that phone companies and internet companies have to store all this information about us. There were lawyers, journalists, priests, they all said, we don't want this. And here you can see like 10,000 of people went out on the streets of Berlin and said, freedom, not fear. And some even said, this would be Stasi 2.0. Stasi was the secret police in East Germany. And I also asked myself, does it really work? Can they really store all this information about us every time I use my mobile phone? So I asked my phone company, Deutsche Telekom, which was at that time the largest phone company in Germany. And I asked them, please, send me all the information you have stored about me. And I asked them once, and I asked them again, and I got no real answer. It was only blah blah answers. But then I said, I want to have this information, because this is my life. You are protocolling. So I decided to start a lawsuit against them, because I wanted to have this information. But Deutsche Telekom said, no, we will not give you this information. So at the end, I had a settlement with them. I put down the lawsuit and they will send me all the information I asked for. Because in the meantime, the German Constitutional Court ruled that the implementation of this EU directive into German law was unconstitutional. So I got this ugly brown envelope with a CD inside. And on the CD, this was on. 35,830 lines of information. And first I saw it and I said, okay, it's a huge file, okay. But then after a while I realized, this is my life. This is 6 months of my life into this file. So I was a little bit skeptical, what should I do with it? Because you can see where I am, where I sleep at night. What am I doing? But then I said, I want to go out with this information. I want to make them public because I want to show the people what does data retention mean. So together with Site Online and Open Data City, I did this. This is a visualization of 6 months of my life. You can zoom in and zoom out, you can wind back and fast forward. You can see every step I take. And you can even see how I go from Frankfurt by train to Cologne and how often I call in between. All this is possible with this information. That's a little bit scary. But it is not only about me. It's about all of us. First, it's only like I call my wife and she calls me. And we talk to each other a couple of times. And then there are some friends calling me and they call each other. And after a while you are calling you and you are calling you and you have this great communication network where you can see how your people are communicating with each other, what times they call each other, when they go to bed. You can see all this. You can see the hubs, like who are the leaders in a group. If you have access to this information, you can see what your society is doing. If you have access to this information, you can control your society. This is a blueprint for countries like China and Iran. This is a blueprint how to survey your society because you know who talks to who sends whom an email. All this is possible if you have access to this information. And these information are stored for at least 6 months in Europe, up to 2 years. Like I said at the beginning, imagine that all those people on the streets of Berlin in autumn of 1989 had a mobile phone in their pocket. And the Stasi would have known who took part at these protests. And if the Stasi would have known who are the leaders behind it, this may never have happened. The fall of the Berlin Wall would maybe not there. And in the aftermath also not the fall of the Iron Curtain. Because today state agencies and companies want to store as much information as they can get about us, online and offline. They want to have the possibility to track our lives, and they want to store them for all time. But self-determination and living in the digital age is no contradiction. But you have to fight for your self-determination today. You have to fight for it every day. So, when you go home, tell your friends that privacy is the value of the 21st century and it's not outdated. When you go home, tell your representative only because companies and state agencies have the possibility to store certain information. They don't have to do it. And if you don't believe me, ask your phone company what information they store about you. So, in the future, every time you use your mobile phone, let it be a reminder to you that you have to fight for self-determination in the digital age. Thank you.
Who needs privacy? Doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, activists, protesters. How would a lack of privacy prevent these individuals from performing important social functions? What about teenagers? How could lack of privacy affect teenagers' health, safety, mental health? What about criminals? How would you decide when someone no longer deserves privacy? Is it worth the risk to invade someone's privacy for the greater good? Social media privacy settings. How public is your online activity? Who has access to your online information, and what are they doing with it? Now, in internet privacy, this is from Google.
When you use Google services, we collect a few different types of information. This info generally falls within two broad categories. There's the info you create or provide to us, and info we collect as you use our services. Let's have a look at each. We collect the info you create and provide to us. That includes the name you provide when you're creating an account, a photo you've uploaded to Google Photos, or a message you send using our services. We also collect info as you use our services. That means info about the devices, apps, and browser you're using, as well as your activity on Google, like the searches you make, ads you interact with, and visits to websites that use our services. It can also include information about your location as you use Google services. This means when you search for coffee shops, we can use things like your search terms, plus your location, to help you find a great place just around the corner.
Instagram privacy. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram have become an everyday part of our lives. Divulging major aspects of ourselves like photos, locations, birthdays, and even relationship statuses has become less scary and more, normal. It's important we're cognizant of these potential threats and, more importantly, what each individual platform is doing to prevent them. Instagram accesses your location. Instagram recently introduced a feature that allowed users to tag their location when they posted a new photo or video to the feed. Tagging a location allows followers and non-followers, if you have a public account, to keep track of your location, but also allows Instagram to keep track of where you spend your time. This data is recorded, which is why you may see ads targeted to where you live or suggested locations when you go to post a photo. In-app activity, your legacy. People can see what you like on Instagram, and it may affect you just as much as anything you post yourself.
Bachelorette frontrunner Garrett apologizes for liking hurtful and offensive Instagram posts.
You know, people say and do certain things. I've done things in the past that I'm sure it wasn't the best thing, but I just want people to stay open-minded to everyone.
Earlier this week, the 29-year-old Nevada native deleted his account after screenshots went viral of Garrett liking images that mocked transgender people, feminists, immigrants, and Parkland shooting survivors. Shortly after, Garrett created a new account to start fresh. He posted this lengthy apology. Quote, "I am sorry to those who I offended, and I also take full responsibility. I have learned an extremely valuable lesson, and am taking steps to grow, become more educated, and be a better version of myself." Garrett also insists the liked photos were not a true reflection of who he is, nor his morals. Quote, "I do not want my social media to define who I am, and I will take better care moving forward to support all walks of life." E.T. sat down with Bachelorette Becca Kufrin on Wednesday, where she addressed the controversy.
I can't fault anyone for what they believe, and who's to say that anything that anyone likes is truly what they believe in if they just double tap. I can't speak to that because it's not me, but I am a strong woman, and I do believe in certain things, but again, that's what's so great about our country is everyone is entitled to their own opinions.
How would you address something like that with any guy, really, if you found out something like that?
We would have a discussion about it. We would get to the bottom of it and find a solution.
Please catch the rest of this Prezi in part 2.